little bit easier for this one. Last one had a microphone and everything else I had to deal with, so it's kind of nice having a lesser crowd. But it also means I get to be a little bit more personal with you guys. We get to answer more of y'all's questions, which is I hope what y'all have. I mean, I can present some information. It's not a lot of time, so I'm going to kind of rely on y'all's questions because I think that's the most important because that's the stuff that's kind of eating at y'all. We're going to start off with the video. It's going to be probably about like 6 or 7 minutes or so, but it's a really good video and I think it really draws some good points.
This is 9 News Now.
9 wants you to know the heartbreaking reality of what a drunk driving crash really looks like.
And tonight we're going to show you exactly what happened in real time in the minutes leading up to a fatal crash December 29th of last year. Now you may recall that the tragedy unfolded along University Boulevard in Silver Spring. And Andrea McCarran is here with a report that you may find hard to forget. Andrea?
Well, guys, it is absolutely chilling, and you're about to see and hear 2 young people die. We agonized over whether to show it, but the young woman behind the video camera urged us to do so. She hopes, as we do, that it will save someone's life. A night of partying, a drunk driver behind the wheel, and 3 exuberant young women hurtled from sheer joy to this in just 6 seconds.
It's 611 University Boulevard.
Are you getting to the car now? Because nobody's moving in the car. Yes, all 3 of them in front, my sister and mom. There's nobody's moving. He's not moving. It's still dead. Twin, don't move. Twin, please don't move. Oh my God. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
I know.
It looks dead. Oh my goodness, it looks dead. It looks dead.
I'm still in denial.
18-year-old Dessalene James was the only survivor.
I don't know. Maybe I'm here to save somebody else.
If we die tonight, we know what we go. Yeah.
Dessalene was buckled into the front passenger seat, videotaping her night out with 2 friends. The police investigation revealed their car was traveling at 94 miles per hour in a 40-mile-per-hour zone.
I wouldn't want anyone else, not even my worst enemy, to walk in my shoes right now.
The car barreled over a chain-link fence and plowed into a brick embankment. The impact so violent, it flung parts of the car into tree branches and utility wires.
I can't cry anymore.
The 3 friends had spent the night at a Montgomery County club. Dessalene is wearing white. Janice, the driver, is in blue. Tamara, the backseat passenger, is wearing black. Even though she's just 18, Dessalene said it was no problem getting alcohol.
It was very easy. I just had to pay the guy to do $10 not to put an X on my hand.
Ironically, the DJ's last words of the night proved ominous.
Please go to your car and drive home safe.
Do you have any vital signs?
The crash left Dessalene with a broken hip. Her physical wounds have healed.
Now I'm just wishing, like, I had more bodily pain to forget about my emotional pain. Like, I want to hurt. I want my body to hurt, because then I have something to focus on.
Dessalene wants others to see the horrific video that has changed her life forever. An alcohol-fueled nightmare that ripped away 2 friends. She and Tamara were so close, they called each other sisters.
You never think that something like this is going to happen to you. It's 1 in a million, like, and then boom, it hits you. And there you are, that 1 in a million.
With this new perspective, she's frustrated with teenagers who insist they have the right to drink and even the right to get behind the wheel afterwards.
If you want to put yourself in that position, maybe we could trade with God that I could take your life and get my sister's life back. If you want, because that's what you're doing. You're putting yourself out there to die.
Now, the only place Dessalines can see her best friend is at the cemetery.
I don't get a hug, I don't get a kiss. I just see a patch of dirt and I talk to it. Bye, baby, I love you. And I'll come back.
All right, as I'm sure y'all can tell, this is
Very
an extremely
powerful, very
difficult
sad.
video to see. But this is, I mean, with our job, this is what we typically see, and this is what we see every year. Every year we're having these collisions where these students are being involved, whether it's from our, one of these local schools or a school nearby. And we present at quite a few of them. We try to talk to the kids, we run different programs, but it's just a select few that just don't get the message. And this is what we're tired of. Basically, this is just one girl's perspective to Leon. It's just her perspective. They really do forget to look, or don't forget, but they don't even focus on the parents, the family, the friends, the neighbors, the school, children, all the other people that are severely impacted by these collisions. And it's quite a few. And not to mention the loss to society. It only takes one genius to change the world. You look at, Einstein. Who knows if they would have been the next one. So we're losing a lot in our society. And that's why we really want to focus on these and drive this message home. All right, let me see if I can figure this apple out here. There we go. All right, so as I said, I'm Corporal Arsenault, Montgomery County Police. We're going to cover, let's see here, a lot of different things that we do. So I'm with the Alcohol Initiatives Unit. We work specifically with alcohol-related crimes, and we branch out. We do some other things related to traffic enforcement as well. But primarily, we're looking out for those drunk drivers, whether it's in the afternoon, morning, or even during the evening. We kind of mix our schedule up to get everybody, make sure that we can find all the drunk drivers out there. It's a hard task. There are so many of them out there. I can tell you last year alone we had over 3,000 DUI arrests, and that was just by our department alone in our county. That's not including any of Maryland State Police. That's not including Rockville City, Tacoma Park, Gaithersburg City, Park Police, Natural Resource Police. That's not including any of these other jurisdictions or agencies. That's only us alone. So you can get an idea of how many drunk drivers we actually have out on the roadways. And it's not just at nighttime. It's all throughout the day. We also work on the controlled dispersals of underage drinking parties. And I'll cover that here shortly and tell you about it, basically how our system works, the way things happen, and what will happen if, in fact, one of your kids or someone you know gets charged with it. The other thing we do is we do establishment checks. So we go out and we send underage kids into bars, into restaurants, and we try to see if the servers or the bartenders or cashiers will actually sell alcohol to them. If they do, we actually cite the person who sold the alcohol and the establishment as well. We work specifically with the Department of Liquor Control, and we hold them accountable. So the establishment usually faces several $1,000s in fines, if not suspension or revocation of their license if they sell to underage kids. So that's a program that we do on the side. Here's a holiday task force. You guys will hear about it soon. Every year we host a holiday task force where you put a huge task force together with Maryland State Police, Gaithersburg City, Tacoma Park, Maryland National Capital. We put everyone together. We create a task force and we look specifically for alcohol-related crimes. For a 2-month period, this is the amount of alcohol we confiscate and seize from underage drinking parties. And there's many more kegs that you can't even see back behind it. It was quite a few. And then finally, we do education. We come out to schools to teach. We come out and do presentations for the community, do PTSA meetings and whatnot as well. Some facts about alcohol to see why it's such a huge issue. There's, and this is actually back in 2010, there's approximately 189,000 hospital visits to the ER simply by underage kids due to alcohol-related issues. So as you can tell, it is a huge problem. And to kind of put it into perspective, the amount of people that die related to alcohol-related issues, if you imagine a Boeing 747, which is one of the most common aircrafts we use for traveling, it's like one of those fully loaded, and it's one of those crashing every other day, and everyone dying on board. And that's countrywide. That's how much of an issue we have. And if you really think about it, how many times would it take for one of these aircrafts to go down before they start grounding them? You know, 1 or 2 of these aircrafts go down, they're going to say, all right, we're going to put it all down until we do an inspection and find out what's causing this. But we've kind of accepted that. We said, it's just alcohol. It's just a DUI. It's just a fatal. It's just here and there. But in fact, these are killing so many people that we're really placing a huge focus on it, and we're hoping that the community will join us as well. before we get any further in the presentation, I want to give y'all more information. This is the information we present to the students because it's a lot of confusion in this area. When we talk to students, and even when we talk to adults that are driving drunk, we ask them, we say, well, how much have you had to drink tonight? And they'll say, well, just one drink. And they are adamant about it. They say, I only had one drink. And that one drink consists of a solo cup. So when we talk about drinks, we look at the three different types. You have your beer, wine, your liquor, and they're all supposed to be measured. So with your wine, it's a 5-ounce glass of wine, it's a 1.5 fluid ounce shot of liquor, or it's a 12-ounce beer, which is equivalent to a can of beer. Well, if you think about that, it's not the double shot glasses, it's not the shot glasses filled to the rim, and a lot of times, I mean, if you think about how much liquor you can fit into a solo cup, these solo cups that they're serving at these parties, 6, 7, 8, 9 shots in just one cup, which is significant. And to kind of put a number to it, because everyone knows the legal limit to drive, what is it? What can't you have over in your system? 0.08. That's the maximum that you can have. Now, if you're below that and you show signs of impairment, we can still charge you with DUI and DWI. That's just the magical number that the legislators came up with. They said, you know what? Based on the studies, it doesn't matter if you're a functioning alcoholic or a first-time drinker, you're going to show signs of an impairment at a 0.08 or higher. Therefore, if you are a 0.08 or higher, it's illegal within itself because we know you're going to be impaired. So, we took a look at our, I'm sorry, let me just back up one more. So, with each one of these drinks, they're all different amounts of liquid, but they all have the same amount of alcohol inside of them. So, if you were to take one of these drinks and drink it, it's going to get you equally as drunk. So the way we equivalent, it's equivalent to is if you look at the average adult, so that's going to be the average person, which is not our children because they're still growing up, right? So the average adult, if they were to have one of these drinks, it's going to raise their BAC to a 0.02. Women, I know y'all are going to hate me for saying this, but y'all are genetically, you have more body fat. All right, I know I'm going to get bad reviews for this one, but because of that, alcohol is going to affect y'all even more. So it's even more than that 0.02. So that's something else to kind of keep in mind. So we took a look at our fatal collisions here in Montgomery County. We wanted to see what the average BAC was for these impaired drivers, for these drunk drivers that are in fact killing somebody. So for the people that are over the age of 21, their average BAC was a 0.17, so slightly over double the legal limit. But those who are under 21, the high school students, the ones, all of our kids, they were a 0.24, 3 times the legal limit. And if you do the math, and what's the math on this one? If it's 0.02 for every drink, how many drinks are they having to get up to that point? 12 drinks. Now, every hour that passes by, your body, or the average person's body, digests almost 1 full drink. So we know kids, when they go to these underage drinking parties, they're drinking for an extended period of time. So they had at least 12 drinks, if not probably somewhere around 15, 16 drinks during that time period. We also reached out to Suburban. As officers, we see a lot of negative things, and we get kind of biased on stuff because we think the whole world's just evil. So we went up to the hospital, we said, are you guys seeing the same thing? And this was just Suburban Hospital alone. They said, yeah, we're having a huge issue. We're seeing underage kids come into this hospital at least 3 a week, and their average BAC is at least a 3.0. Doing the math again, that's 15 drinks, if not more, during that time frame. And this is where it concerns us, because alcohol is classified as a depressant. That's the kind of drug that it falls under. And depressants, a lot of times, it's going to slow down your body, and eventually, when it slows down too much, it's going to kill you. At a 0.30, that's when we're starting to look at death as being imminent. And that's why you have your alcohol poisoning. At a 0.35, we are mandated to send you to the hospital to get you help. There are very select few that can make it above that, the functioning alcoholics. And when they get up to that point, they can only go just slightly above that before they pass as well. So this is why we have concern. And we're trying to figure out, well, why is this number that much different than this? Why is it that our kids are having such a higher BAC? And it's for a number of reasons. First, we look at underage drinking parties. There's no measuring of anything. Everything's done in solo cups. Everything's done by games where they're quickly taking these drinks, whether in small amounts or large amounts. And they're not keeping track of how much they've actually had. And even if they did, they probably don't understand what it means. The other thing is we look at liquor stores. You look at different types of liquor being served. And I'm sure y'all probably seen it in the stores. They have, cotton candy flavored vodka and stuff. I'm assuming that's not going to be for our generation. And if you drink cotton candy and it burns going down, you should probably return it. It's not supposed to do that. But we look at a bunch of different stories. Does anyone know Kevin? I'll just cover his real briefly. He was a Magruder student. Him and his friends, they all decided to go out drinking one night at an underage drinking party. They all had too much to drink, and of course when you drink, you just typically make bad decisions. They all decided to get into a car with a drunk driver. Kevin decided to drive drunk. He lost control of his vehicle. He wrecked into a tree, at which time he decided to flee on foot. He didn't call 911. He didn't render aid. And he left John, Spencer, and Haley inside of the vehicle. There was one other survivor that was in there, and testimony was of one person who was screaming for help, and they needed help. And it wasn't until a passerby that came by that called 911 that we were able to get medical personnel and police there to render that aid. We caught Kevin 3 hours later. His BAC was a .16, and that was 3 hours later. So at the time of the collision, he was probably somewhere around a .22 BAC, 11 drinks at least. He was initially sentenced to 40 years. It was reduced. I believe it's somewhere around like 8 to 10 years what it was reduced down to. But we talk about the different effects it has on his life. And even though, I mean, a 40-year sentence on his life is tremendous. It's not, he wouldn't be getting out until he was, I believe, 59 at that point. You also look at the flip side now, even though it's been reduced, let's say he gets out while he's 25 or 28 years old. How much of an impact does that have? And we try to put the students, the high school students' life into perspective, and we say, well, think about it. You've already graduated high school, you've walked the stage, you've gone to college, you've walked the stage again, you've gotten that dream job, you've got your car, you're buying a house, if not married and already having a kid or two. And now he's just getting out. Well, how much more does it impact his life? Well, not only is he missing that, he's got to live with the fact that he let these 3 die, 3 of his best friends, and he not only let them die, but he left one to die in pain and agony. And he's got to live with those screams and the sounds with the rest of his life. Not to mention when he goes to get a job later on. So he's going to have to face that consequence. And we talk about Google and how Google never forgets. And let me tell you, even if you don't post it to Google, Google's still going to find it. Things are cached in there forever, pretty much. I mean, you can pretty much expect it to never disappear. And for employers, I mean, he's going to have a hard time finding a job because that job application is going to ask, well, have you ever been convicted of a crime, or what have you done? Or employers are going to ask. And he's going to be compelled to say what he did. And if not, that's fine, because Google tracks it as well. And when you Google, you're going to find reactions from the families, such as, my heart is broken, I can only feel rage and despair, he has taken everything from me. Or Kevin Coffey is an irresponsible coward who left my sister to die in the wreckage at the side of the road. All these are going to be quotes that are going to follow him for the rest of his life. And if an employer or someone else who's trying to look him up if they don't want to click the links and they don't want to read, they can simply just go to Google Images and they're going to find all these images and quotes such as where they get the booze, cops had to track down a driver with a canine after he killed 3 passengers, ride with a drunk, buy a ticket to your own funeral. So these are things that are following him for his entire life. We talk about high BACs, and 2.0 is definitely high, but we also have low BACs. This one here is an Austin Hall. It was a more recent one, happened back in 2014. He was a .11 BAC. He had drugs on board in his system, which is part of it as well. And that's what we're also seeing. I'll cover that here shortly, but we're going to skip over just to save time. This is the vehicle. This is before we even touched it. This isn't fire rescue. This isn't police. This is simply just from the collision in itself. All right, so first of all, we're going to clarify some driving, some DUI, because a lot of times it's interesting because we understand that students don't understand a lot of these laws, but it's kind of surprising but understandable that parents don't either. So we talk about DUI and DWI laws, and in fact, a lot of people don't even know there's a distinction between the two. They just figured it was the same thing, just a different acronym for it. So basically, in the state of Maryland, we have DUI and DWI. It's a 2-tier state. So you have driving under the influence and driving while impaired. In order to get charged with a DUI, it's either to drive or attempt to drive. We don't necessarily need you moving that car. We don't need you going down the road. Simply to be in physical or actual possession or control of that vehicle. And if you think back to the days where I'm sure all of y'all have driven a manual vehicle, those can go without even starting the vehicle, right? Because if you were to have it in neutral and the parking brake comes off, what's going to happen? It's going to go. So that's just kind of give you an idea. You can put the brake on even without the car being turned on. So any sort of ability to manipulate that vehicle, to control that vehicle, you are now in physical control and you can be charged with DUI. If you attempt to drive it, if you're going out to your car, technically we could if you're trying to get into your car. Now there is a law in the state that a lot of people confuse, and it's basically says that you can take refuge in your vehicle, and you can. But we highly recommend that if you're going to do that, you don't do it in the driver's seat, do it in the rear seat or something if you have to. But don't even put yourself in that predicament because it's not worth it to begin with. So with that, the 2-tier state, we have driving while impaired. And this is the little boy charge. This is what we typically explain as the tipsy charge. This is when you're driving while tipsy. Easiest way to understand. And the penalty is 60 days and or $500. And then you're going to have your actual drunk charge or your .08 or higher. And this one here is 1 year and $1,000. Now, we talk about the consequences to these. And these also apply to drugs as well. And that's the other thing is a lot of kids think, well, I can drive while high. Or I can, a lot of kids are on antidepressants or on different kind of medications, and then they do have a couple drinks, and they may not be up to that .08 level, even though they can't have anything in their system to begin with. But they said, well, you know what, I've only had 2 drinks, I should be fine. But when in combination with these drugs, it intensifies. Marijuana and alcohol combined, it's like a DUI times 10. It's terrible. And a lot of people don't understand that the combination of these 2 drugs, the polyuse, is what's really causing a lot of issues out on the roadway as well. And they come with the same consequences. But we talk a lot about not just the law aspect of itself, but you also have to look at the administrative side of things. So for instance, when you go to criminal court, you're going to have to pay for your attorney. And let me tell you, they're pretty expensive. The starting DUI fees are usually around $1,500 for a basic DUI, and that depends. It could get a lot more depending on your situation, if you had a collision, if you hurt somebody, or anything of that sort. Court costs include MVA fees, alcohol education programs, your interlock devices, which is what we now have with Noah's Law, probation fees, and not to mention insurance rates. And basically the state of Maryland agreed with insurance companies, said you can raise your rates $1,500 every year for 3 years. So if you think about it, your average juvenile is going to be paying about $1,500. It's $1,000 to $1,500 for a female, $1,500 to $2,000 for a male is the average insurance rates. If you raise that, you're going to be paying, the first year you raise $1,500, that's $3,000 for the first year, $4,500 for the second year, and then $6,000 you can cap out at for just insuring your youth. So there's a lot of different consequences to the DOIs that go well beyond the court. But a lot of things that we present with your students is going to be about the underage drinking parties. And of course, media and the internet and Facebook, they always post these kind of parties trying to make it look like this amazing thing. But in all reality, these are the parties that we see here in Montgomery County. This is just one alone where the parents disappeared for one night. They went out of town. They were supposed to, it was a Saturday night going into a Sunday. And this is what the house turned into. Now there's some wet stains on the chair. It's actually from one of the kids who peed on the chair while they were a little too drunk. And this one here, the puke right next to the toothbrush, all that good stuff. So we talked to the students about Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and all these different things that they're using that I can't even keep track of, that they're posting these underage drinking parties on. And the problem we're having with it is it's making mass notifications to people. And we're seeing people from Virginia, West Virginia, D.C., Baltimore, Prince George's County, you name it. They're coming from all over the place to these underage drinking parties. So when they come to these parties, we have multiple concerns. First and foremost, they're coming from out of state, they're coming from out of town, and they know that nothing's going to make it back to wherever they came from because no one knows who they are. They're coming into these houses and everyone's welcoming them in. At that point, it's no longer a burglary because you invited them into your house, or someone who has the authority to has done that. They're stealing things. They're taking the iPads, they're taking the laptops, they're taking the cell phones, they're taking anything, jewelry, anything they can get their hands on because everyone's so busy at these parties, they don't know what's going on, they're not paying attention. And if they are paying attention, they'll usually start a fight as a diversion, and then the rest of them will run through the house grabbing what they can grab and running out the door. The other problems we're having with it is when these kids are showing up, if you don't know someone, a kid is less likely to take the keys from someone who's been drinking than they are if they don't know them than if they do know them. If it's their best friend, they're hopefully going to make that good choice. Say, you know what, you're going to crash the night here. I've got a bed for you. I got a couch for you. I got a sleeping bag. But if you don't know who they are, they're in just as easily as they're out. And they're out onto the roads driving back to wherever they're coming from. So there's a lot of different concerns with these. And it's a lot from these Facebook postings, what we're finding out. And even parents that are hosting the party, in the sense of, hey, it's my kid's birthday party, trying to have an innocent party. They set it out on Facebook, and before they know it, Mom, Dad, I don't know who any of these people are at my house. And we're getting parties, 100, 200 plus people at these houses. And it just floods the house so quickly that the parents don't even know what to do at that point. They're just completely just in shock. Alcohol pops out and they go, oh my goodness, now I can't call the police. And now they're just pretty much letting people booze in their house. So the way it works, basically, and we try to tell the parents, is there's a lot of different things that we want y'all to take into consideration. When hosting a party, we know y'all are going to have those different parties for different events, special events, whether it's homecoming or prom or if it's a birthday party or whatnot. But it's going to take a lot of planning. It's going to take a lot of planning. And the first and foremost, you need to have a meeting with whoever's in your household and talk to them individually. You need to have an understanding, mutual understanding of what's going to happen, set down some ground rules, where people can go, where they can't go, what time they're going to be there by, and what time they're going to leave. Taking into consideration a whole bunch of different things, such as provisional licenses. You know, what time do they have to be able to make it home in time? Who can come? Well, create a guest list and having a parent stand by the door and make sure whoever's coming in is on that guest list. And if they're not allowed in. Limit the number of entrances and exits. You know, make sure that they're not using these back doors while you're up at the front door. They will use not only doors, they will use windows, they'll use anything and everything. That's not only just for getting in, but also for getting out. And I'm talking about second story windows. I've seen kids try to jump from second to third floor windows just to get away. So just kind of keep that in mind. Set your limits of where they can go. Create your guest list. If things get out of hand at any time, feel free to call us. That's why we're here. If it's something that you can't control anymore, what else are you expected to do? And we're going to come in, and we understand that alcohol does sometimes pop up. People bring them in book bags. Now, if you have a keg at your house, that's somewhat of a different story. But we know kids bring them into book bags. They hide them in the bushes. And another thing is make sure kids aren't coming to and from the house, because a lot of times they're going to be going out to the car to take the drinks, because they're going to be storing them all in the back seat. That's how they bring in their drugs as well. So you want to create a whole bunch of different rules and lay everything out and try to get some help too. So whoever's kids are coming, see if their parents want to come over. Notify their parents of what's going on, because as soon as you start reaching out to them, they're going to return that favor to you whenever they host a party. And then you guys can work together and do some inspections and work together to help make sure that these kids are in fact having a good time, but doing it in a safe manner. Now, if things get out of control, what we're going to do is we're going to show up to the house typically, because we're going to get a phone call. We're going to find out about it somehow, whether through social media, 911 calls. There's a whole bunch of different ways that we find out about these parties. And we're going to get to the door and we're going to talk to the homeowner, because that's who we really need to speak with. And we're going to request permission to come in. We're going to handle it because we're sick and tired of, once again, making these notifications. We're the ones, with our unit, we are the ones that go out to these parents' houses and notify them at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning that their child has died. And we're tired of it. We're just done with it. So what we can do is get everyone home safely, and that's what our primary goal and objective is. It's not the end of the world for these students. Obviously, we have to handle the situation. So what we're going to do is we're going to offer what we call a preliminary breath test. It's a little gray box, okay? And we're going to ask everyone to blow into it. They have the option to do it or not. If they blow zeros, we want to reward kids for making a good decision. So if they went to an underage drinking party, we understand that they're still going to go hang out with friends. Sometimes alcohol pops up. But we understand that they want to have a life to live. And if they make a good decision not to drink, we're going to reward them for that. And they're not going to get cited for it whatsoever. All right? The way Maryland works, though, is we have a constructive possession charge. And constructive possession basically means that if you knew or should have known that there's an illegal substance, whether it's alcohol or drugs, you're guilty of it. So technically, everybody at the house would be guilty of it as long as they knew or should have known that there was alcoholic beverage there. Doesn't mean that we charge everybody. Once again, if they blow zeros, they made a good choice, we're going to send them out the door. If they blow a number, that's how we can prove they in fact that they had something to drink. We can't use it in court against them. But that's how we say, you know what, this is how we're going to differentiate between who gets rewarded and who doesn't. If they blow anything, they're going to get a citation. And if they refuse to blow, they're guilty of it already. So I'm not going to offer them anything if they don't want to provide that opportunity to themselves. So they're going to get a citation as well. The maximum penalty for a first time is $500, $1,000 for a second or subsequent. But in all reality, we know that you guys are the ones that are paying the price, and y'all are the ones kind of sort of learning the lessons, but not really, because chances are we see these kids over and over and over again. So what we'd offer is the first chance go around is we offer community service and alcohol education course, because we know the kid is going to be the one doing that community service, and the kid is going to be the one that has to attend that class. Second time, we do it again, and probably some sort of fine associated with. Third time is going to be more of a fine associated with it. Now, for the parent, or for the kid who hosted the party, so this is for a keg. If you drink from a keg, actually, let me cover this. In the state of Maryland, a lot of people are confused. They say, well, we are technically allowed to serve our kids alcohol, aren't we? And they say, well, yes and no. The way the rules work is a child anyone under 21 can be in possession of an alcoholic beverage if it falls under certain criteria. First criteria is if it's a religious ceremony. So if you go to Catholic church and they are Catholic mass and they have wine there, obviously they can consume that religious ceremony. That's not to include the Budweiser Kings. We had a very unique set of circumstances where kids actually worship the Budweiser horses, and that doesn't apply. Very creative. If it's part of their employment, scope of their employment, so if they are to serve it or something of the sort, and it's under legal means, then they're allowed to do it. And the other one is if the parent, and it has to be the parent, can't be the aunt, can't be the uncle, can't be the grandfather, it has to be the actual parent, and it has to be at their own household. It can't be the aunt's household, can't be at a Christmas party elsewhere. It has to be the parent at their household, then they can, okay? But the law says specifically that it will not be from a keg, which is a good thing. So, even though, yes, technically you can in certain circumstances, it can't be from a keg. Penalty $500 for the first time, $1,000 for a second or subsequent. We do work on community service parenting classes, obviously, because they're probably going to need it. Monetary fine and probation. And furnishing. So for the student or for the adult who furnishes the alcohol, give the alcohol. We actually had a case, I worked a party where the mother was celebrating her child's 16th birthday. And she provided, I'm sure you've seen those big round blue pools. That was completely filled with beer. She had all Corona in there, and that was for the kids to celebrate the 16th birthday. So needless to say, she got, it's not to include the cooler of marijuana downstairs, but she's going to get charged with furnishing, and the way it is $2,500 citation. That's going to be per person. Now, once you've been convicted of before, every citation after that comes at $5,000, and that's once again per person that you've served underage. Typically, if it's going to be one person or two people, we typically look at community service, we look at minor fines, parenting classes, things like that to help, so we don't have to give that full price, because we think that instead of paying a check, it's more beneficial that you get the knowledge, the background, the understanding of what's going on. And then you also have the adult responsibility, and this is where a lot of parents are concerned about. They say, well, I was trying to host this party, then all of a sudden it came, or they're going to say, I was sleeping upstairs, my kid snuck a bunch of people into the basement. And it's basically if you knew or should have known. So if you saw remember the pictures that I showed up earlier, if you're telling me you slept through that, you're getting charged. Yeah. There's no way you slept through that. You should have known that there was a party going on inside of your house. If it's just, handful of kids and there's just, one bottle of liquor and they're down in the basement, chances are you probably didn't know. We use common sense with it. If you knew or should have known that there's an underage drinking party, it comes with the same fine, $2,500 for the first go around. After you've been found guilty of it, $5,000 for the second and subsequents. Once again, for the first couple, we usually try to do community service, monetary fines, kind of make sure to both educate people as well. And this is where it gets interesting. Possession of fake IDs, and it's something that we've seen big, especially with the use of the internet, and it has gone pretty much viral. These kids all over the county are getting possessing multiple licenses. Pennsylvania is one of our most common. It's a very, very good license, I'll be honest. These IDs that these companies are producing, I believe they're coming from China. They are amazing fakes. We can tell because we know what to look for specifically, but I would not expect a parent to know the difference, except that their kid probably shouldn't have a Pennsylvania license. Something to bear in mind, there's two of them in this photo. Why? Because they come in twos. If you find your kid with one fake ID, they will 100% guaranteed. I rarely ever say that. 100% guaranteed there will be a second one, okay? Easiest way to tell if it's fake, well, other than it being Pennsylvania, they do have some Maryland ones. The Maryland one is going to be the old Maryland license. If you bend them, they're going to crease, they're going to break, the plastic's going to peel off. That's the only thing that's really cheap about them. And there's some minor security things that we know of that we don't pass out because they'll fix them. So if they try to buy alcohol with it, it's a $500 penalty for the first time they do it. It's $1,000 for any second or subsequent offense that they try to do it. But that's just the alcohol side. That's a civil citation. This here, though, it also falls under criminal charges because you're possessing a fraudulent government identification document. Government does not like that. MVA doesn't like it either. And the MVA will actually suspend their Maryland driver's driving privilege for possessing any sort of fake license or ID. The flip side is, and that's what we were kind of, Phil Andrews and I were talking about a little bit earlier, was how are they getting these? And you got to think, well, all on the internet, obviously, but what do they have to provide? Well, they have to be shipped, so it's going to require an address. And by the way, when they come in the mail, they're going to come in the form of a game, and they're going to be hidden somewhere inside of the game. That's just the way they've been packaging them. They come in twos, they come in a game, but they're going to have to provide a mail-in address. They're going to have to provide a name, and it's usually their same name because they want to have some sort of, something like a credit card or ID or something that kind of corroborates their name as well, and it's something easy to remember. They usually stick with something similar to their date of birth. They just simply change the year. And a credit card because they have to pay for it, or PayPal. With that information alone, let me tell you, civilian databases put law enforcement databases to shame. I can get so much more by going onto a civilian database in terms of looking people up than I can get from most of my law enforcement databases. For $1, I can probably get every one of y'all's social security numbers, and all I need is your name, and I can figure out the rest. That's just for $1. So these kids are also having to send a photo of themselves, right? So essentially the way it works is everything gets combined. They send it off to this guy, and you know what? He's really good. I'll give him props. He's good at what he does. He's really good at fraudulent IDs. But the cool thing about it is that he's just not a good con artist where he does fake IDs. That's his minor business. He actually sells IDs, people's identifications. So what they're going to do is they're going to post this up on the black market, and when someone looks like this kid here or close enough to it, now they're going to assume their identity because everything is going to look just like him. Or they're going to go and slap their own photo on top of it, and now they're going to steal his information because now they can easily get his social security number, they can easily get the rest of his information, his house address, and all that good stuff. It's very simple through Facebook, through just Google alone. There's a lot of different places. If you have a cell phone, all that stuff, that's what feeds into these civilian databases, and they pull from a lot of different things. But they're stealing people's identity, and you're not going to notice that because a lot of times you guys probably have some sort of identity protection, I'm assuming, whether it's one of the major companies like LifeLock or whatever. But how many of y'all actually have it for your kids? And that's a lot of times where they know. They say, you know what, no one's really worried about a kid because they're not the ones going to get loans. They're not the ones going to get rejected for a credit card because who's getting a credit card at 16 or 17? So there's a lot of issues involved with that. Possession on school property, can't do that either. So that's a $500 penalty, and that's for not just for on school property during school hours, but a lot of times we see a lot of pickup games of soccer and stuff like that where we're having a lot of issues where people are bringing alcohol on the school premises. And sales to minor, we have a lot of different charges. It's kind of interesting. We talk about cannabis just briefly. This is an older study. 1 in 15 high school seniors admitted to smoking pot. Each year, over 100,000 teens are treated for marijuana dependence. And this is really interesting because a lot of times high school students go, "You're lying. There's no way you can become dependent on marijuana. There's no way." And we kind of explain it in a different way. A lot of times people they say marijuana is it's not like cocaine. Like I can't become addicted to marijuana like I can to cocaine, and that's true. You don't have a chemical dependence to it. But the way it kind of differs is, and we like to explain in easy terms for the students, is think about your cell phone. How many times have they been pulling out their cell phones throughout the period of the 1 hour class, and the teachers and the counselors can tell you that? It's going to be multiple times, or how many times they've been texting. I can take that cell phone away from them, I can take that the marijuana away from them, and sure, they're not going to do it for however long I've got it. But as soon as I hand it right back to them, they're going to go right back to it. A cell phone isn't addicting like cocaine either, but it becomes a part of your everyday life. It's how you deal with boredom, it's how you deal with stress, it's how you deal with a lot of different things in your life. Once again, biting nails. We all know the people who bite their nails. Definitely not the most attractive thing, right, women? Yeah. But how many guys do you know that still do it? You at least know one. So you think they say, that's pretty gross, why would I do that? Biting your nails isn't chemically addicting like cocaine is. But once again, it's how you deal with stress, it's how you deal with boredom, it's how you deal with a lot of things in your life. So in fact, that's how they do it. And oh man, I got a test coming up. I just got to relax a little bit. I'm going to smoke a little bit of marijuana. Or I've got something else going on. I'm going to smoke a little bit of marijuana. And before you know, that's literally how they deal with every part of their life. And it becomes a gateway drug. Some of the other officers on my team, they're what we call drug recognition experts, and they go out to Baltimore. And that's how they learn their art and their skill of figuring out what drugs people are on. It's pretty cool. They can tell you what drugs someone has consumed, how recently they took it, how impaired they are, just by doing a couple different tests. But when they go out and they talk to these individuals out in Baltimore, that's one of the first things they ask, well, how did you get started with everything? And a lot of it all started from marijuana. They said, that was the first drug, but I want to try something a little bit different. They just want to mix things up just a little bit because they say, it's a pretty neat feeling, but I kind of want to feel a little bit better. What's the next step up? Oh, pain pills. We also have a lot of issues with what we call farm parties, and that's been popping up a lot in the county, and it's not those things that you find in Poolsville. It's actually pharmaceuticals. They do a lot of pills, and what kids are doing is they're swiping all the pills from your cabinets, the ones that you haven't used from that surgery that you had, that you just figured you'd keep in there for that one special day that you had a bad toothache or something. They're taking those pills and they're bringing them with them, and they're throwing them literally into a bowl. They stir up the bowl, and then kids are grabbing a handful and they take whatever they're taking, and it's kind of like a mystery effect of what's going to happen to them. That's in combination to smoking marijuana, and that's in combination to drinking alcohol as well. So these farm parties, they're popping up. Austin, he was at a party where they were doing a lot of different pills and a lot of different drugs as well. So that's where we're starting to see now it's different. It's a lot more difficult, especially if you're hosting these parties, because how are you going to know what pills people have in their pockets? What pills are they bringing in their purses? So you've got to be very cautious, make your rounds, speak with the kids, and get to know. And when something starts looking funny, if something starts looking weird, then you should probably know, hey, I should probably reach out to law enforcement. We can come out, we can identify the parents, we can bring them home. Also, real quickly to cover, and you can cover this with your kids, is there's a law that went into effect about a little ways back, and it talks about if you were to call a 911 for someone who's in distress, someone who needs medical attention due to alcohol or drugs, not only are you immune from the furnishing charges and the possession charges, but so is that person who needs the medical assistance. And the reason why this law went into effect is because we wanted to make sure that people did not hesitate to call 911 for someone who needed them. Okay, cover that with your kids. That's something that's very, very important, because we want it to really, it's going to fall back on them, because a lot of these parties we're seeing are done in abandoned homes, where they're homes for sale, where they kick the door in and they just throw the party inside there. So it's not necessarily, there's parties at y'all's house, especially when you go out of town and stuff like that. More than likely, you're not going to be there. So that's something we want to pass the word on to them, so they know in the back of their head that, you know what, if I need some help, I can get it for them. We have a lot of different issues. A lot of times it's been pleasant working with parents. There's been some that hasn't been. We had a recent party where the parents were out of town. We talked to the child. He said, well, my parents are out of town. Can I talk to them? So that's fine. So we called his parents, and they said, under no circumstance will you allow the police in their house. So we were talking to the kid a little bit more, and we said, well, how is everybody inside? Because we already knew one person had been transported to Shady Grove Hospital. It was a female transported to Shady Grove Hospital for alcohol poisoning. She was unconscious at the time. I said, how's everybody else in the house? He said, well, there's one person. I think he's sleeping. I said, is he sleeping or is he unconscious? He goes, well, he's not waking up. I said, is he breathing? He says, I don't think he is. And he says, but my parents said not to let you guys in, but I know this is the right thing to do. So he opened up the door despite what his parents told him. He opened the door, we got the help for the kid. He was in fact breathing. We transported him to the hospital for alcohol poisoning. But we have our own battles, we have our own challenges. The biggest thing is it's not the end of the world for these kids, and that's what I want to put out. It's not that it's okay to drink, but it's a civil citation. It does not create any sort of criminal record for them unless they furnished alcohol. It's a civil citation. They're going to do community service, and chances are it's going to be dropped for their first time go around. So they have that option. They have that ability, because we all know kids make mistakes. They have that option to do that one mistake, and then that's their freebie. It's going to be a little bit of community service, so it's not the end of the world. And it's also not worth on y'all's end to have to be responsible for one of these kids leaving a party, getting into a wreck, killing themselves, killing somebody else. And I think more importantly, not just killing someone, but also injuring. And we usually finish it up. Actually, yeah, I'm talking about how far this part was in here. We are doing a lot of different changes. We're trying to push for a lot of different laws. Noah's Law was one of the biggest ones, and it's about getting drunk drivers off the roadway by forcing them to have an interlock device, which prohibits their vehicle from starting if they have alcohol in their system. We want to open a whole new world to them, a new world of options, taxis, Ubers, Lyfts, friends, anyone who's responsible to get them home. And it forces them to do that because now their vehicle won't start. So that was one of the legislations that we worked very hard with Noah's family last year. And this year. And then also Alex and Calvin's Law. This law talks about the two Montgomery County students that passed away due to a drunk driver, which was their friend. And basically it says that it's a really diluted law, and it's kind of crazy, but it says that if a parent hosts an underage party and allows someone to drink and someone leaves that house and kills somebody, they're susceptible to 1 year in prison and or $5,000, up to a $1,000 fine. So we push for different legislations. We do different projects, education, Gator project, every 15-minute project, pharmaceutical disposal programs for those of y'all that have those pills that you don't know what to do with because you're told not to flush them down the toilet. Bring them to us, we'll dispose of them for y'all. We do PTSA meetings, community meetings. We've helped pass legislation. We do a lot with enforcement. Operation Extra is the one that we reach out to the community volunteers and comes out with us. We usually assign 2 police officers to it, and then y'all are the eyes and the ears. And we give y'all radios, and if you see anything, people urinating before they get into their cars, or urinating in public, or getting ready to stumble to their car, y'all let us know, and we come right out there because we're sitting right around the corner, and we step in and we help. Cops and shops, where we go into plainclothes and we hide and we act like customers or employees inside of liquor establishments looking for kids coming in to buy booze with fake IDs. We look for kids that are coming in to steal the alcohol and not even just try to purchase it, they just run out with it. We do even check to see if cashiers are still selling to people without checking in and stuff like that. So we have a lot of different things, compliance checks where we send underage kids in, and all sorts of different traffic enforcement. But this one I always want to put out is this is Jacqueline. She was a girl from Latin America. She came up here to learn English, and that was her main purpose. She said, you know what, I want to leave Venezuela, I want to learn English. So she moved to Texas. She lived in Texas. She went to a family function, did not have anything to drink, nothing at all. But a high school football player did, and he drove drunk and ended up colliding with Jacqueline's car. Jacqueline's car caught fire, and she ended up suffering multiple burns. This is her life. Over 117 surgeries later, this is the life that she is now forced to live. So it's not just about the people. And a lot of times people say, well, how many people have died from drunk driving? It's a horrendous number in itself, but what people don't know is the horrific numbers of injured, the people who are now suffering for the rest of their life because of not just something that they did, it's something that someone else did. It's a very, very selfish decision. So we try to push that through. It's a very interesting story, and it usually has quite an impact with the high school students. But with that being said, I'm sorry, I probably took quite a bit of time, but any questions?